Have you ever wondered where my name and of course the name of the channel came from? Well, it's a mix of my two favorite comic book characters, Ben Edlund's The Tick and Eric Powell's The Goon. I discovered The Goon around 2006 and quickly fell in love with Eric Powell's storytelling, humor, and art. So when I recently discovered that he wrote a book in 2014 called Big Man Plans, published by Image, I was very excited to dive in. So I downloaded that baby because, you know, I'm poor, and read it. And, well, let's just say I was expecting a pulpy ode to horror with a good amount of humor, much like his other works. But, well, I didn't get that. In fact, what I got can only be described as disturbing as shit. The book starts with our hero, though he can't really be called a hero for reasons I'll get into later, getting a mysterious letter that sends him on a path of gruesome violence and revenge. Also, worthy to note, our hero is a midget. I didn't know how to bring it up, so I just put the hero's a midget, because it's true. Anyway, the motivation for his actions is not explained until the last issue, so until then you're left in an uncomfortable position. Not knowing why he's committing these acts of violence made me feel kind of gross reading it. During the first few issues, you learn of his past. You see him bullied and beaten for his size, and it gives you a good look into the troubled upbringing leading to him wanting to enlist in the army. He is rejected due to his size, but is recruited into a secret squad put together by, you know, some army guy to take down the Viet Cong tunnels, because this takes place in Vietnam, of course, in the Vietnam era. After that, you see him start his killing spree. He brutally beats a man to death, which brings the cops' attention. We later see these cops beat and attempt to murder him by burning him. But he manages to escape and is nursed back to health by a nurse from his childhood who was one of the few people that treated him good. After that, we see him continue his killing spree, and we get a genuinely disturbing scene where he kills one of the cops that tried to kill him earlier in front of his immobile mom, which happens to be his aunt, which gave him for adoption when he was a kid, but not before showing her the mysterious letter that he got in the first issue. And seeing the pain in her face as she realizes what her son has done is genuinely disturbing, and it was a good way to keep me interested, because at this point I was just seeing violence basically. So I really wanted to know what was the drive that sent him into the spree at this point. The way he kills the cop itself is also gruesome. And just the idea of seeing a loved one in front of you killed and not being able to do anything is pretty messed up, I thought. Anyway, he manages to capture the final cop, which leads to the finale in the final issue. At this point, there's still no reason for the violence, so I was feeling a little uncomfortable still. It seemed like Powell was just indulging in violence. But the hint of what was in the letter in the last issue really kept me going, and I was like, alright, there's gotta be a reason, right? And, well, yeah. At the end, he reveals the reason for the violence, and it's pretty messed up. This issue intercuts between flashbacks and the torture of the final victim, where basically our midget hero is trying to get him to confess to his deeds. During the flashbacks, it shows our main character's childhood, where he had a female friend who was the only person other than the nurse to be nice to him. It showed him developing feelings for her. One day when he's gonna basically confess his love to her, she interrupts him to tell him that she's getting married, that she's engaged, which is what leads him to try to enlist in the army out of pain, basically. We later learn that she is married to the cop, the final torture victim, and she is the person that sent him the letter. It shows a flashback to the cops arresting a gay couple on the side of the road and harassing them for not only being gay, but because one of them is black. The harassment gets worse and worse, leading to beatings, and eventually them making the black man give the main cop oral sex. After that, it leads to them raping and killing the gay couple, basically. During this, the cop's wife walks in and happens to see what is going on, which, you know, she runs away and she writes the letter to the midget. So that is the letter that he got, was her telling him what they did. And it's insinuated that, well, it's not insinuated, it's just said that she thinks that the cop knows and that she's afraid for her safety, basically. So during this, you see some pretty graphic depictions of torture to the cop. And unlike in the first few issues where you were like, oh man, this is too much, here it feels like warranted, because you learn and you see these shitty characters do this in the flashback. So you're finally like, okay, there's a reason. So that was good. During the last few pages, he tells the cop that death is too good for him, basically, and we see him lobotomize him. And as he stares into the sun, it shows a newspaper clipping of an obituary of the girl saying that she committed suicide, with the heavy implication that she was actually murdered by the cop. So once again, you get a reason behind the violence. And I want to say that Eric Powell does a good job of building these cops up to be horrible pieces of shit in the last issue. So much so that you forgive all the horrible things our hero has done up to this point. And you're like, yeah, kind of warranted. So my final thoughts on this book, well, it's not what I expected. This was an extremely violent book, which normally I don't have a problem with. But for the first half, I was like, damn, this is too much almost. Not to mention the fact that the entire final issue is pretty genuinely hard to read, given the extremely disturbing revelations of what happened. But is it bad? No. In fact, it's excellent. The art, as always, is great from Powell. But we also see a different side of Powell's writing. Something a little more serious, with almost actually zero humor. There's no humor in this. It feels like a throwback to rape revenge movies of the 70s, but well written. That being said, this book is not for everyone. The difficult subject matter and the extreme levels of violence make this hard to recommend to everyone. But with all that said, this was a great book from Eric Powell, showing that he can do more serious work. I would give it an 8.5. No, I would give it an 8 out of 10, just because, again, some of that violence is a little much at times. And apparently, according to Eric Powell himself, this was written during a kind of a dark time in his life, and it kind of shows. That being said, I think the final issue makes the entire thing worth it, and just the art. And if you like gory kills, this has them. So there's that. But yeah, I would recommend it if you don't mind seeing intense levels of gore and are patient enough to make it to the final issue, because it is a good book and it is written well. It's just kind of hard to read at times. Anyway, this was kind of a different video. I actually wrote this out, so if you see me looking off the screen, that's why. And I kept forgetting what I was saying, hence the cuts. But, you know, maybe I'll do more of these comic reviews. I've been reading a lot of comics recently. I want to check out Eric Powell's other book, Hillbilly, so maybe I'll do a review on that. I do recommend you find this. You can find it on getcomics.com. I won't link it because it's technically not not the preferred way to get it, you know what I mean? But you can find it there, and I would recommend it to some people, not everyone. If you like exploitation movies, check this out. Anyway, for now, I gotta say bye. I also gotta say Ahab freaking sucks. Hashtag goontick is cool. Hashtag Ahab sucks. Hashtag Marcus has a tiny ding. Hashtag Miles created Long Elf and thus is cool. Anyway, I'm out.